Hi, friends. Good morning. It's Saturday. It's 6:26 a.m. I hope you're asleep. I wish I was asleep, but I'm not because I was going to record this yesterday, and between work and a ton of phone calls and text messages about what had been the candidates' night, we went to dinner with friends. At the point, I called and made reservations. I did not see anyone there who constantly touts that they are always there. I didn't recognize anyone's face, uh, but we did have dinner for 6, at the point, and it was good. The service was great. There's one guy that works there. He is a waiter, and he recognized us and was like, "I'm so glad you're here." They already had our table ready for us with water on the table. The menu, of course, it's pared down right now while we work through some operational issues with staffing and such, but, it was the first time our friends who just moved into Fairfield Harbor within the past month, um, had gone and eaten there, so it was a good time. It was a good time. Our kids had a great time. There was food for everybody. The drinks were great. I had multiple lemon drop martinis. They were amazing. But yeah, it was a good time. But after a couple lemon drop martinis, I just did not have it in me to do this last night. So it woke me up about 4 a.m. that I still wanted to make sure I got this done. So here I am, 6:30 on a Saturday. I have coffee in hand. I hope if you watch this that you are caffeinating as well. I saw someone this past week and I explained to them that I'm pretty much mainlining coffee till like 3 o'clock in the afternoon these days. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about Candidates Night, May 15th, 2025. I describe it as well attended and wild. I mean, you know, I think that there is this kind of preconceived notion that old people, and I put myself in this group as having a 10 and 11-year-old that remind me every day of how old I am because I was born in the 1900s. Um, so there's this, I think, preconceived notion that we kind of get quiet, we become more reserved, we slow down, and then we just transition into that good night, right? Like, I mean, I just not this community, not this community. We showed up in vehicles. There were people with signs. There were people, golf carts, all the like it was so well attended. And I will tell you at one point on the live stream, we had more people than would fit in the room. And for that, I am thankful. I am so glad that there was a modality in which folks that could not attend for one reason or another, whether that be that the room we were in was maxed out, whether that be you had someone at home and couldn't leave them, whether that be that you were at work and were just listening in. I am I live streamed this meeting. This meeting was called to order or what have you. Pat Dumont was our moderator and host. She did a really great job. But at the very beginning, she was like, and turn off all your cell phones. To which immediately everybody was like, no, no one's doing that. I knew I was not doing that because I want to make a point. I want to make a point that our meetings can be live streamed. When I live streamed the budget meeting last time, I think the biggest critique I had or have heard from the board, because no one's talked to me directly, is that they didn't want all of the negative comments coming in through the live stream that I was sharing as they were happening, right? We can live stream meetings and have no comments on. We can live stream meetings and let people have a voice and we can see them. And I've had multiple great conversations with Al. I respect Al. Al has a Facebook or a YouTube channel too that I'm going to show you before I get into this content. Al is a really great resource for this community. And I think that people feel like when we record a meeting and then Al takes it home and edits it, that he has the potential to cut content, to edit the actual context of what was said, when it was said, cut things out, that kind of thing. I do not believe that happens. And so I wanted to live stream this, one, because I knew there were people that could not attend in person for one reason or another. And two, I wanted to help set the context and lay the foundation for the fact that Al's edits are merely adding a really nice cover photo. Sometimes he does voiceover that says, "This is the May 15th, 2025 candidates night meeting. These are the 5 candidates that are uh, contending for one of our 2 open board positions. This meeting was held at this place during this time." And he does some really great um, intro outros throughout his videos to create some transitions, but I do not believe that he shares the context. So, I also wanna lay the foundation for the fact that I can live stream a video and keep in mind that my live stream content, because I was holding my phone and I was standing for over 3 hours. We stood for an hour out in the parking lot conversing and having a good time, and then the meeting itself was over 2 hours, and I was standing the entire time holding my phone, so my video quality is shoddy. It's bad at best, okay? And, the audio quality kinda is what it is because we had 1 mic. It was not attached to any kind of transmitter or grounder at the audio source, so I think there are gonna be things, but I'm hoping that Al, when I see his video, that the audio quality is better than what I get, but you get what you get on my video. But I will also, like I said, I don't think that Al this is gonna prove out that Al does not cut and and change the intent of a meeting by editing out information. So I just think I had a great conversation with Al at the meeting, during the meeting. We have talked since the meet I just, I people I just looked at myself and it's a mess. Okay. But the amount of conversation that happens after a meeting, did you see what she was wearing? Did you hear that question that he asked? Why would he ask that question? Did you stop that? We are grown people and we don't have time for that kind of drama. The meeting was what it was. People asked the questions that were on their heart. The board of director candidates got a chance to respond in whatever way they wanted to. And we're going to talk through some of those today. But like, we don't need the after, like, you can have opinions. Trust me, I have many. But the whole, like, I don't know, we want to have civility was a key theme of this meeting. We want to have civility. We want to get rid of the disdain and the hurt that many people across this community feel for one reason or another. We're not going to do that by continuing to leave meetings and having behind the scenes conversations about what people wear. Why did they think that was a smart question? It doesn't matter. It was their question. They have the right to ask a question. So, um, that aside, I just want us to kind of get past all of this and become the community that we say we want to be. That's my intent. So here, um, I love that we're 10 minutes in. There's still nobody joined. I hope that means that you're sleeping or you're in the shower getting dressed, ready to go out on the golf course. I think it's going to be a beautiful day today. So, um, I'm going to quickly just share my screen here. Sorry. Um, this is my Fairfield Harbor podcast channel. Um, this is what you should see, I think, whenever you log in. I have a little bit different view because um, it's my page, so I can add and edit content. But this is what you should see. I will let you know that I just uploaded a video you will see 3 minutes ago. It's 8 minutes long, or yeah, maybe 8 minutes, 8 minutes and 11 seconds. FH mail. I learned about this like a year or so ago. Someone mentioned it to me, and I didn't really connect dots in my head on that this is another communication strategy for getting information out into Fairfield Harbor. And then it was brought to my attention again this week, and I was like, what is this FH mail in which you speak? And so I did some digging yesterday, figured out where to go, how to get to it, how to sign up for it. It is an email distribution. And so in that 8 minute video, I walk you through what it is and how to access it. Again, I am brand new to it, so I don't know 100% of how it works, but I do think it's valuable for people, especially if you're new to the community or have been here for a while and didn't know it existed and social media is not your preferred method of communication. Email is where you get the weekly updates and any kind of pushes from the beacon or things like that. This is going to give you more. Hey, I have lamps for sale. Hey, I want to sell this bike. Hey, Al's video is out on his YouTube channel. Click this link to watch the recording from Candidates Night. All of that stuff is going out when we have information coming out from our candidates around their socials and stuff like that. It's going out there. So, definitely, if you have not yet, sign up for FH Mail, and that video shows you how to do it. Quick, 8 minutes. Um, but down here at the bottom of my page, I do have two other pages that we have. I don't think I know who owns this Fairfield Harbor page with a space between Fairfield and Harbor. But this Fairfield Harbor with no space, this is Al's page. And if we click this, it takes us to Al's page, right? And this is the raw video captured during the meeting. So you can actually see. So this was updated or streamed a lot 11 hours ago. I have not watched this video. I will try to watch it sometime later today. One thing I will tell you while I'm just doing a quick recap, because it's Saturday morning and I'm not rambling, but I am, you know, oh wow, it shows that I'm live. Okay, great. Uh, I will show you quickly how, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I will show you quickly how to do two things that I think would be valuable. I prefer long stream content. I listen to people on YouTube in my background earpods while I'm working or working with my kids on certain projects that stream for like 7 and 8 hours. I love that. Some people not are here, are just not here for it, and that's fine. But when you are on my page, there are the videos that I load, and you can see all of them here. There are the live streams that I post, so you can see those on the live tab. There are also posts that we have. So I post a lot of photos here, kind of similar to um, Facebook or whatever, but you can interact with live posts here. But in my live streams or in any of my videos, you can, and we're going to watch this one right here, is what we're going to do. That's part of it. I'm going to pause this because we're going to back it up. But you can, down here at the bottom in YouTube, click on this little settings cog, if you will, and on playback speed, you can speed this up to like 1.25, 1.5, 1.75, and 2 to get through hours of content super fast. And if someone talks really slow and you're like, I need to hear it faster, right? Like you can speed up any video that you want to make it not as long as it is originally recorded. So I want to make sure that you are aware of that. I am not going to play back the segments that I'm going to go through in this video at any higher rate because the video quality and the audio quality is lacking. And we have folks on the board like Wayne, or in our candidates like Wayne, that talk really slow. And I know Neil talked really slow, but he has that South African accent. So he wanted to make sure that we could understand him. So they're talking at a slower cadence. We have folks like Deb and Lee who talk at a faster clip, right? So I'm not going to speed this up because also between candidates, we have a lot of variability in the speed in which they speak. So having said that, I did just wanna make sure you were aware that you can also turn on subtitles. So if you're somebody that has a hard time hearing, we have a lot of folks in, our community and folks that watch these streams that have just hearing impairments for a myriad of reasons. You can turn on closed captioning, and it's not something that I have hand typed. It is what Face or YouTube will kind of pull out from how I talk, which is very Southern and often doesn't hit the mark. So I can't speak to the quality of the closed captioning, but you can turn that on here. Um, and then yeah, you can turn on the quality. You can update the quality of what your playback is too. So again, I recorded this meeting from my phone, handheld. So the audio is coming in from my phone. So you could hear me. You're likely going to hear me um, really loud because I don't know any other way to be. And then you can hear the people kind of far off that are at the various mics throughout the room. Some of them are very hard to hear, and I will try to game up the volume as much as I can. So, having said that, let me see if I have a lot of notes. There were a lot of, there are a lot of just talking points, but I think the highlights, I mentioned one earlier. The big themes that I heard from Candidates Night are civility, us getting back to a community of people that respect and appreciate each other, right? Like we have a lot of that is just going around that is a lot of things that do not go towards civility, respect, self discipline that we just need to get back to. And that was several people's questions. One lady got up, did not really have a question, but helped, like, gave us all a very stern talking to for how we are treating each other and asking that we please rethink how to be kind to one another. That was also a question towards the end of the night. How do these candidates feel like they will bring civility and humanity back to this community and get us away from this corporate feeling? Um, so, anyway, that was a big theme. The other pieces were bylaws. Folks asking these candidates, would you be willing to sign something that says that you will require a vote for any bylaws changes? Um, there were a lot of calls for people to sign something. Will you sign something that you will not get rid of our green spaces? Will you sign it was good to see that people care enough to want people to put in writing so that they can't say something trying to get voted into office and then turn around and have their actions in office reflect differently from what we bought into. I really appreciated that. And then the other piece that was a big theme was financial accountability. So that civility and humanity, the keeping our open green spaces and not developing them for homes um, or other buildings, changes to the bylaws, and financial accountability. Those were kind of the big four themes from Candidates Night this week. So, Pat Dumond, like I mentioned, she opened our meeting right around 7 o'clock. I think it was maybe a minute or so early, just because the room was full. I did talk with Kate right before the meeting. They put out 141 chairs in that room. So I think I originally mentioned last week because what I had heard was they were going to cap it at 80. That was not the case. There were 141 chairs in the room. I did look, there is a sign hanging in the community center that we use today that the fire code max capacity is 150. So, like I said, there were most all seats had bodies in them, and there were people standing up around the room, um, including a deputy sheriff. So and she did a really great job, and she spoke at the end of the meeting, and I'm gonna play her little clip at the very end, but, we were right at that max capacity in the room. There was an ask at the very beginning to have no rants, no speeches, questions only. That was not always adhered to, but that's fine. People have a voice and we want to hear it. And then we did the Pledge of Allegiance. So there was a bylaws resolution made that that will be how we start all of our meetings. So we did do the Pledge of Allegiance. And in my recording, that's at like minute 6:13 or something like 6 minutes 6:13 was the Pledge of Allegiance. If you want to watch that, where I was standing, and when everybody stood up for the Pledge of Allegiance, you can't really see the flag, but it was there. Each of our candidates had 5 minutes to give a brief intro and talk a little bit about their platform. Wayne's is at 7 minutes and 30 seconds is when he starts. He talked about his 30-year HOA experience, how our POA is a business, but it's a people business, and we are the owners that pay the POA for what we want. The board delivers what we ask for, is his point of view. He's read North Carolina General Statutes 47F and 55A. He talked about that a few different times. And he talked about in 2016, all 2,800 lot owners were asked to vote on the purchase of the 385 acres. But then years later, when it came time to put $6.5 million on the line, the same board of director appointments were the ones to vote for that 15, like those that were voted into the board of directors were the only ones voted into, that voted us into that 15-year obligation. So he discussed the lawsuit briefly, and then talked about respect, transparency, and timely communication. Lee Fawcett went next and gave us his interview. If you're looking at my video, he is at like minute 13:35. And he started out talking about the rumor mill and speculation, and how when you don't put out good concrete information, people will fill in the gaps for themselves. And that's how this starts. He talked about unity in our community, which is the platform in which they are running on. He honored the work of past boards to recover from Florence and past financial issues. He honored our current board for the work that they have done, although he did not agree with the methods in which they went about doing that work. And he talked about voting, communication, hiding in executive sessions, as part of his qualifications for that statement. His kind of this is what I want to see happen were open meetings, less executive sessions, not closing the restaurant or the golf course, communicating with our members, not to our members, and then easily understood financial statements. Again, that's a big theme from the evening. Deb Harris went straight into her intro around minute 18 and 48 seconds, and she talked really fast. She kind of took the mic and immediately jumped in. She was sitting down, so you will, if you watch this video, hear people be like, "Can you stand up?" Like folks are talking over her talking, so it's really hard to hear. But she has a broken knee that she is recovering from. She is able to walk, and we hope that she continues to get well. But she was not standing, and I think in a sign of uh, just solidarity, Neil did a lot of his talking from a seated position as well throughout the meeting, and I think that was just to show solidarity with his running mate. So, um, anyway, I will just say she kinda jumped in, so if you're watching this at minute 18:48, she does start back over when folks kind of interrupt her asking her to stand. Um, she talked about people being civil and enjoying their later lives here in Fairfield Harbor. Um, she did talk about losing Kevin as the treasurer, and I don't know that that's widely known. I was talking with someone out in the parking lot ahead of the meeting who had heard that he had tendered his resignation, but it had not been made kind of available. They had been told not to share that information, but she did open up this candidates night, her part of it, talking about how we've lost Kevin as our treasurer. Um, and I think I don't know what the process is for resigning and if that's immediate or if there's a time and date in the future. Um, I'm sure we'll learn more. She talked about boards past and present have had the best interests of our community at heart. She reviewed mounds of insurance documents over her time on the board so far, and she's worked with those insurance documents to save and policies to save us about $30,000, which we thanked her for. And I think it was, oh my gosh, his name is escaping my brain right this second, but he was the second one to ask a question. Bill Hewitt. He even in his question thanked her for saving the $30,000 for the insurance. She talked about options for the new community center. What will we do? Will there be a game room? Will there be live music? She gave several different things that, right, the sky's the limit. We can make it what we want to make it. And so I liked that part of her speech. Like, it is, the building is what it is. What goes inside of it is still up for discussion. Um, and that the board cannot fix this neighborhood. She did talk about that. That the neighborhood has to fix itself, right? Was my interpretation of what she said. Bob started his kind of intro at minute 23 and 4 seconds on my video, and he talked about integrity and faith. That's how he kicked off his meeting. Those are his running platforms. Doing the right thing when no one is watching, that's the integrity part. And faith, believing in each other. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading my handwriting. I was writing as I was listening. Faith, believing in each other, serving selflessly, and trusting others were the platforms that he talked about at the beginning of his uh, 5 minutes. Wanting to advocate for fair practices and practical budgeting. We learn a bit about him and his military background. He was the mayor of a small village. He did serve on the board. I think he was elected in 2019 and then joined the board in 2020 and resigned in 2021 or 2022. I couldn't really pick that up. But anyway, and he talked about why he resigned. He said he had lost faith in himself when his wife was diagnosed with cancer. Colleen stood up and everyone got to meet and clap for her at minute 27. And so that was really good. And he talked about the board needing to be accountable and answer our questions. At minute 28 and 22 seconds, Neil Watts started with, and we learned a little bit about his background in South Africa. He is solution driven. He was in the South African Navy, moved to America for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He moved in during Florence and then had COVID right after. He talked a little bit about folks having lunch in their driveways and being able to yell across the street just to have some interaction with folks and getting to know people. And he talked about there being really 2 factions in our community today, the angry people versus the non-angry people. Um, he talked a little bit about the harassment after the last election. The community is filled with kind, caring people that deserve better, fiscally responsible budgeting, and level-headedness. All right, and then questions in my video start around minute 34. So we start with the first 2 questions. The first question was asked by Van Williams, the second one by Bill Hewitt, and they were both addressed to Deb herself. So one had to do with a comment that Les had made at a meeting last year, I believe, or no, earlier this year, where, if I remember right from the context, the I guess Les had made a comment that she would rather yell at you than talk to you. And I know that Deb can be kind of a bulldog. We've talked about that before. And so was that an accurate assessment of her character? And then Bill Hewitt talked about her insurance background and whether or not there were any conflicts of interest or um, taking advantage of her insurance background with getting better pricing. And so I think exceptions were taken to those questions. I think it was a charged way to start the evening of questions. Charlie jumps in at 38:44. If elected, oh, would we give notice to the community for changing the bylaws? Bob spoke up and said, he would talk about the process. He would get more information on the process to change the bylaws. Bylaws are not just changed through like, "Hey, I wanna make this change to the bylaws." Like, there is a process documented in our DORs, and so he would talk about learning more about that change. Deb would review all bylaws to stop the discussion, um, but there was pushback during that saying she didn't really answer the question, "Would you ask for a vote to change the bylaws?" And her answer was she would just address all the bylaws, so that people could stop talking about the bylaws. And then Wayne went next and said, yes, he would revisit all bylaws to represent the recall vote. He did talk about the recall vote. Lee said what he said. And then Neil acknowledged the supermajority in his answer, which I think folks have very valid concerns about the supermajority when we've never had 67% of the eligible members come to vote. It really makes it hard to do anything. So more to come on the supermajority, I have no doubt. David Phipps was next. It was a yes or no question about the sign on 55, or I'm sorry, David Phipps' question was a yes or no question, but I didn't have the context for that. I thought it was interesting at minute 43 and 16 seconds, Cheryl Berg asked a question about the sign on 55 and how it was paid for. And Deb was the one to answer this question. And she was so glad that Cheryl asked because we did not pay. And I have to go back and look. I was digging and digging and digging yesterday in between meetings. And I know we had a conversation about what was paid for the sign, and we had a lot of conversation about that lot at 55 that we had purchased, but evidently we didn't purchase that lot. That lot was given in kind where the reciprocal payment was a lot in Fairfield Harbour, which is a voting lot. So, if we gave land in Fairfield Harbour with the vote associated with that land to get the acreage out at 55, I have never heard that until last night's meeting, and I know we had extensive conversations about that. So, I am gonna continue to do digging through our meeting minutes on Front Steps are not such that you can, keyword search for certain things, and I think that's probably intentional by design or just a, product of shoddy development on the part of Front Steps, but what have you. You can't keyword search, so we're gonna search through every single minute meeting notes since I see the sign mentioned in the weekly updates. So, uh, more to come on that. There was a lot of talk about moving whether or not we move the offices from the community center where they are now outside the gate. Um, I don't know the name of that, like Coral Reef, off of Coral Reef and move them to the new community center. Neil said Neil, it makes sense to move them to the new building. Deb talked about them from the perspective of an insurance liability. We want people to be in that building every day, all day working, especially if there were issues with the sprinkler system. Our flood insurance policy would want to know that there are people in that building to be able to identify and address that timely. Lee and Wayne talked about them being fine where they're at and how it also decreases what I implied was decreases the security risk of people that are not members, or have an otherwise need to know come into our community through the gate to get to the offices. Because once they're in, we don't know what else they're doing while they're here. I did think it was interesting at minute 47 and 50, and let's see if we can play it. And I'm hoping that in playing this, you're able to hear the video. So let's go to 4750-ish. Alright, I don't know where this is gonna pick up. Let's see what we got.
The waiting list for people to rent the office space?
Oh, wait, I don't
I would love to see that
on.
list. You agree?
Hold on, hold on, hold on. I don't think for some reason my audio is sharing here. Let me remove this. Stop screen sharing. Okay. I have it just auto share my okay, let's just go at it from here. Hold on. What'd I say? 4750-ish?
What? There's a waiting list for people.
Okay, hold
to
on a
rent
second.
The office space?
That was me talking obviously really loud. Let's go back and listen a little bit.
I'm going to address this from two ways. From an insurance standpoint, and I'm going to make this clear. I bring homeowners insurance for strictly HOAs, POAs, condominiums, and apartment complexes for 28 years. So I'm pretty well versed in how vacant building insurance works. There's no difference in premium, but if that office is not maintained with live bodies in there, then we will have coverages removed, one of which will be sprinkler leakage. There's going to be sprinklers in that building, and without someone in there overseeing it, you could well be in trouble with water damage. My second is the POA offices. There's a waiting list for people looking to rent them, so that could actually be a revenue generating asset.
No. What? There's a waiting list for people to rent the.
Who knew, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, you obviously I got really loud, so I'm sorry if I blew out your eardrums. But yes, she mentioned, and keep in mind, I'm starting to get like a little annoyed in my mind, and it's coming out through my tone. I can hear it as I was recording. But yes, she announced the whole sprinkler system issue or what have you. But then the fact that there is a waiting list of people ready to rent the office spaces that exist today on Coral Reef Road. Maybe it's the salon and the what have you that are already in there. I don't know. But I would love to know if it sounds like if we have a waiting list of people that are wanting to rent it, then we have a fee schedule. And I don't know if we've put out for everyone like, hey, this building is going to become for rent on this date. And this is what I have not seen. And I look at the MLS for Fairfield Harbor all the time. And I don't know that I've seen anything about that office building being for rent even into the future. So it sounds like we're already having conversations with people if we've already got people lined up to I don't know. That was a shock. Um, there were several. The next question that came would you sign a document that said you would resign from the board if you ever voted to close the restaurant and the golf course? And you will hear in the video, there's like a whole lot of no, why would you sign something? You're not voted into office by a majority of the folks in a community. Same with the nation. And the leaders within that community do something on behalf of you, and then you resign if you do something that they don't like. And I mean, this is why we have a voice. This is why we are able to be heard, because we have communication, open, transparent communication with the people in our governments that serve us. Again, our board of directors acts as our government here. So we need to have a feedback loop for them to hear how we feel about the things that they're doing, hold them accountable for things that they're doing. But at the same time, I would never ask someone on the board to resign if they did something that I did not agree with. There is always opportunity for us to have a conversation about it. Um, and I just found that question odd. Um, and it being around if the again, if the restaurant and the golf course are losing us money month over month over month, year over year over year, at some point somebody has to do something so that we're not making bad financial decisions when we have all of these ideas for how we want to move the community forward. We can't be dragging dead weight behind us, throwing money into buckets that are going to continue to depreciate our assets. So, okay. At minute 49:06, Barbara Barajas, she is the wife of our vice president on our board. She asked a question about um, the authority for the board to make large financial decisions, um, and or sell, like she asked, and then would you sell one lot versus the 55 acres? We talked about large financial issues. It got really heated. Bob feels that he needs to moderate between the 2. Then we're like, "Pat Dumont, you have to step back in. Bob's not here to be the moderator. Bob is here to be a candidate and answer questions for us." Um, there were folks that chose not to answer. And then I don't know why I couldn't it's a lot of chaos happening at this time, and the volume is sus at best. But we took the microphone away from Barbara and would not give her back the microphone to either clarify her question, re-ask her question, or what have you. So at some point, Barbara walks up to the front to re-ask using the microphone on the candidates table, and the deputy sheriff walks her out. I mean, it was a big old hoopla. And I don't know why this whole you get to ask a question, you get 1 minute to ask the question, they get 1 minute to answer your question. And when people can't hear the question or don't understand the question, we don't allow the person at the mic with the question to re-ask or clarify or say you didn't answer my question without getting all bent out of shape. I That happened multiple times. I think it was either Doug King or Craig Myler. I think it was Doug. The same thing happened. He asked a question and the person said, "I didn't hear you." And he starts to re-ask and they're like, "You can't re-ask the question. They just have to answer." He's like, "She said she didn't hear the question." And then they cut him off at time when he started over to re-ask the question and we're like, "You're out of time. They just have to answer what they know today." The time should restart when the people at the table can't hear what the person at the microphone is asking. They have a microphone in front of their face that is supposed to project their voice. And if the table that is maybe 4 feet, no, I would say it was probably 6, 7 feet in front of them, if they can't hear, that defeats the whole purpose of this exercise and having a candidates night. So I just find it really odd that we get so heated and bent out of shape on letting people at the microphone with the questions of the candidates that we want to hear so that we can make the right informed vote and decision. Why we don't just say, "Start the minute over, let him re-ask the question." And I mean, it was a mess, y'all. It was a mess. Um, okay. At minute 54:20, we get a question about no changing to the green space. Um, Neil talked about as part of that question, that we needed a 5 to 10-year capital expenditure plan, and, if elected, would you support a membership vote to change any bylaw? This was the next question. Sorry, my notes are a little haphazard because there was a lot going on at that part of the video. Um, let's see. I can't even read my handwriting there, so oh, there was a question to Wayne. Does the board want a harmonious community? And I think the board does want a harmonious community. I think we heard that from everybody up there. I think the definition of harmonious may be different between everybody, but when the question is asked, just kind of carte blanche, do you want a harmonious community? The answer is yes, is what we heard. So there was another question to Wayne questioning the numbers at his campaign social. So evidently, Wayne had read a document. He, at their campaign rally, had used some numbers that evidently may have not exactly been what was on a sheet of paper or had may been misconstrued as something else. We read when we did the bios on this live stream a few nights ago, we read a letter that Lee Fawcett wrote saying, I want to just clarify what was said at this campaign rally. And he goes through question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. I'm not going to rehash that here, but I think the purpose and the intent of this question was to just bring back for everybody in the room and those watching this live stream that, hey, um, this this happened and we need to hold people accountable for making sure they're giving us the right information, right? And they're not relying on their recall method. So I don't think the intent of the question was to actually have Wayne answer that question. I would think it was meant to be more character assassination, if you will. Mark Bradley asked a question next about the commitment to protect the open spaces. Wayne said absolutely he would protect the open spaces. Deb mentioned that she did not want them developed, but does want something done with them. Neil talked about not wanting to have them developed, but he talked about frisbee golf or something like that, or a beautification effort. Then there was talk about Survey Monkey, put a Survey Monkey out there. And I'm like, I mean, yes, we need a survey. Obviously, if there's going to be anything done to the green spaces, I personally am super protective of the green spaces because we have so much wildlife here, bear and deer and gators and all kinds of things. And at some point, like we have put up almost 3,000 homes in this area, which has taken a lot of the trees and the greenery. There are bald eagles that nest in our trees around here. We have a ton of owls, and I am very sensitive to losing even more green space and putting up streetlights. Like I've heard that mentioned just through the ether and not very loudly, but I am very concerned about putting up streetlights when I know from having worked in Charlotte Mecklenburg on a project in our community when I was the president, when we put up streetlights that the city had recommended, we started having owls literally just fall out of trees dead. And when we talked with NC State University, they talked about the wattage and the frequency of the lights being used interrupt the circadian rhythms of the owls, and it's not sustainable over long periods of time. And so we ended up reverting back to the incandescent bulbs because the street lights were needed. We were an urban area with a lot of foot traffic 24 hours a day. And so the lights were needed from a safety and security perspective, but then also not to interrupt the circadian rhythms of life that was happening 24/7. So anyway, I'm very sensitive to the green spaces and developing them more and or lighting them up. Um, Light pollution is a big deal. All right, so then we get to the hour mark. This meeting lasted. My live stream was 2 hours and 7 minutes. So we're at the 1 hour mark. At 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 9 seconds, we talked about provision to remove the supermajority vote that was recently put in place by the board after um, John and Phil were voted out of office. Lee and Wayne both noted that they would absolutely work to try to change that. Bob said he would take it back and see what exactly it was and hold the board accountable for making it right. Neil talked about keeping the supermajority, how it's common in HOAs to have a supermajority vote needed to vote out board members. And Deb is involved in the lawsuit and did not comment because of such. The next question was, what is their first priority that you want to see done if you're elected? And Lee mentioned having been there had been motions made and tabled to cancel the move of the offices. He would put that back on the table and stop that from happening. And then also having better financial records. Wayne talked about taking the motion that had been tabled, put it back on to have open space development done, and he would just make sure that that is put to bed. Neil talked about improving communication and updating contact preferences, making sure that we understand for everyone in the community, how do they prefer to be contacted, whether it's by carrier pigeon, whether it's by email, what have you. And so he would do that. And then Deb talked about making sure that the beacon would be used as a tool for the board for getting truthful information out there. I'll let you infer what you will from that. Bob's answer would that he would coordinate efforts across the board to create better communication across the board so that whenever they as a board worked better together, they would better be able to serve the community. There was a question around FH Stop specifically. If you were elected, will you support, or well, no, I'm sorry. There was a question about Lee and Wayne being supported by FH Stop. And Lee and Wayne are supported by FH Stop. And they mentioned this at least twice at the very beginning during their intro, and then during this question, which is somewhere around 1 hour and 14 minutes. And they talked about how they are supported by FH Stop, the Facts Committee, the Hands Across the Harbor, and past presidents and directors. And so, yes, they are not just supported by FH Stop, which again stands for Fairfield Harbor Save the Open Properties. So they are supported by a large group within the community, not just FH Stop. Lee mentioned as part of that question that the lawsuit should speak for itself and should be done hopefully by the time they are elected into office. And if it's not, then they will handle it as it becomes a need to handle it, right? So we didn't spend a lot of time on that. At 1 hour and 16 minutes, Doug asked a question about access to documents by the board. And I thought this was interesting. Let me see if I can go to this. 1 hour and 16 minutes. I really hope that the audio from this is coming through. Here's Doug. All right, I'm going to start from here. Okay, whatever. We love clapping.
The responsibilities and powers of directors of corporations. Can you tell us about any such law which may exclude one of the directors from access to their corporation's documents, such as its contracts, its tax records, financial records, etc.?
Do you know of any law that would exclude someone on the board from having access to records, right? Financial records and such. Again, the audio quality is not great, and I'm sorry for that.
ma'am. I've read 47F pretty carefully. I've skimmed 55A. I haven't seen anything in either of them that would exclude any of the directors from access to the public record.
That's a comprehensive answer. I do have read 47 several times, the parts of it, that's why reading 55A is really a challenge, but I didn't see anything in there that relates to your question.
I can't see anything that would prevent information being provided unless, of course, it's confidential information by the law. And you're applying to that?
What, I didn't hear the answer.
I said I can't see any situations where they will not have access to that kind of information. If they are a board member, then they could be have access to board records, of course. Unless, of course, they're part of a lawsuit. And then maybe issues pertaining to the lawsuit that I don't know, I'm not part of the lawsuit, I haven't been part of the last court, but ordinarily issue of problems accessing information. I have to have read 47 and 55. It's not entirely against the reading access information.
We're grandfathered in, all of 47 and 55 do not apply to us, and I cannot understand what does, what doesn't. It actually takes a legal mind to figure that out. But as far as documents, I've been on the board 9 months. I've not yet asked for one thing that I haven't been given access to. I'm not on the legal ad hoc, however, that is consisting of 2 members per request of the attorney, and that is not abnormal for a board like this to have an ad hoc and not have everybody involved.
Okay, so what I found interesting with that was Deb saying we are grandfathered into what, I'm sure somebody can let me know, but that not all of 47F and 55A, those are North Carolina general statutes, apply to Fairfield Harbor. She cannot understand what does and does not apply. It takes a legal mind to know that. And again, connecting dots, our legal counsel writes law and regulations that are supportive of the corporation, if you will, of our POA, not necessarily the members of the community within. So, I it would be great, maybe as part of the board onboarding process, that we have a clear understanding. If there are parts of 47F and 55A that do not apply to us in Fairfield Harbor, we all should have a clear understanding of what those are, not just the board, all of us, because we sign whenever we close on our properties that we've read the bylaws and the DORs and all the things. We should understand what general statutes for the state of North Carolina do and do not apply to us, because that's really important as it relates to what we know and understand. So I do think that Hope, as the legal mind here, can highlight very and this applies within which operate, right? Clarity, information, all the things people are asking for. But I had not heard that before, that we're grandfathered in and that there are certain parts of the North Carolina general statutes that just don't apply to us. So, okay. I did find, let's see, let's go to minute 118. Oh, maybe it's the very next question. Let's just keep playing this for a second. Yes.
I would just like to say that I'm here
He feels a lot of dissension in the room.
I don't have that. Maybe you do. I don't know what's really or maybe I don't know you are here and we didn't get your I felt like dying when I had it. And I heard the exact words from hundreds of other people. I just wanted to say that. Also, I just wanted to, we've gotten this letter around.
He's getting ready to start talking about the letter that Les Pendleton sent out this week, the 4-page letter that I did a live stream on earlier this week.
And I just wanted to get from Lee, from Les. Everybody's gotten one. I wanted to give you an opportunity to dispute anything that was in there.
He wants to give them, Wayne and Lee, the opportunity to dispute anything that was said in Wayne's letter. And I think, yes, that's fine. And Lee gives a really great answer here. But at the same time, there are many others that should be asked to dispute and what have you, comments made in that letter. The letter was ridiculous. All right, here we go.
I can't answer your question. I'll comment that the 4-page letter, I've read it twice. It's a very nicely written letter. The punctuation is good, the sentence structure is good, the paragraphs are clean and brief. And it's written by a guy who writes fiction for a living.
I mean, I can't, there's nothing else to say. So that was okay. Kevin Heidel. Kevin Heidel is our current treasurer, who we got confirmation from Deb as part of her opening that he has put in his resignation. So again, I had heard that earlier this week. I think I put it in my podcast. Others had heard, but were told not to say anything. Don't say anything if what you want to say shouldn't be known by other people. Just don't. But anywho, the deputy sheriff has to step back in as well, because he's basically calling to the table. There's been a lot of things said about financial accountability, honest financial statements, this kind of information. And it's calling into account his integrity, right? He's taking it personal. It's very much the way in which you feel whenever he starts talking. But he doesn't ask a question multiple times. And then you will see the deputy sheriff kind of come into frame because she's getting ready to get added. And then again, we are all adults here. And I know it's really easy to feel attacked and to take things personal whenever your job as treasurer is to make sure that we have financial accountability to all member owners. But I think there are a lot of questions around finances. Did we pay for the land that the 55, like that the sign on 55 is on? Or did we give up a lot with voting rights in order to get that land for no cost? There's question, right, about, yes, we have said it cost us $0 to have the cable run for Hosted America to be an internet service provider option for community members, which gives $20 back to the POA for every membership by month for the easements, right? But yet, and we keep hearing that we did not pay anything for Hosted America, but we did have to put a building with certain temperature controls and things like that in place in order for Hosted America to have a server center for our community. So there were costs associated with that. Did Hosted America pay them? Did we pay them? I can tell you, I have gone back through meeting minutes, and in the entire year so that came out first. The first time it's mentioned in a weekly update is in November of 2023 that it's coming. I went through every single minute meeting from the board of director minutes in 2023 and 2024, and it is only mentioned in the September 19th, 2023 meeting that it's coming. It does not exist unless we're talking about it from a fiber optic perspective. we don't mention Hosted America anywhere else. So it's really hard to tick and tie the documentation in our board meeting minutes with the bulletins that come out every week, with what's in the beacon, because we don't talk about things the same. But I will tell you, we do not talk about the fiber optics and or Hosted America until September of 2023. And it literally was put out in the bulletin, I think November of that same year for the first time. I can go back and pull all the dates. I don't have them in front of me. But we don't talk about it. And we talk about it as if they're going to get ready to start it, which tells me that there had been work and negotiations already done that were not put as part of the minute meetings, like meeting minutes. And so it's really hard. And again, nothing is keyword searchable. So you can't really find information without reading every single thing over and over and over again. We have no hashtags. We have no tags, period, that allows us to just say, I want to see every document on Front Steps that has anything to do with fiber optics, with financial reporting, with the budget, right? But so I just think that Kevin is getting ready. We have a lot of questions because we don't have a lot of documentation that is made available to us as members on Front Steps. So anyway, here we go. Sorry.
I have to admit, I knew that was coming.
Oh, Wayne knew this was coming. Sorry.
From the current president, all the residents, attacking some candidates, supporting others, in my humble opinion, was inappropriate.
Yes.
You just by nature of listening to my feed get my commentary.
Okay.
And no one else chooses to speak about
They
Les's
don't want to
letter.
answer the rest.
Okay, we'll listen to Kevin's.
My name is Kevin Heidel. I live at 5904 Roundaway Drive, and I am the treasurer, and I have been for the last year. Right? I've now heard me up here, okay, basically crashing, okay, what I have done. All right? So, no, I'm waiting, I'm getting my time.
Hi, I'm hoping Peter Measure from the state petty officer. I'm supposed to be here to keep social unrest at peace. So please, if it's not a question, don't ask it, don't say it. I don't want to kick anybody else out. I don't enjoy doing that. I want to be here for everybody. So please, please, make me order, please. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, like I said, I am the treasurer, all right, and for the audience, I'm sure, okay, that you can turn around and say, okay, that I've given more financial information. I'll ask a question. Do you believe that 30% of the community should control this whole community?
Okay, so the question was, do you believe 30% of the community should control the community? And I think there's confusion over what that means. I think that the people on the board, we talk again about the supermajority. We talk about, what do you mean 30%? Like there's a lot of question, but we'll just keep playing it because I think it's important, right? This is what his perception is. His perception is that 30% of the community controls the community. There are other perceptions that the board, the 7 people, control the community, which is why the rest of us have an issue, right? So I think perception is reality, right? Kevin, of course, is taking exception to having his integrity called on the table and the work that he's done for the past 12 years, which I'm sure he has worked hard at doing. Do I think he's likely gotten advice from folks that, like, don't worry about what all these other people say, like, you just do whatever you need to? Sure, all of us at some point have to put our head down, just do the work that we know we were called to do. But at the same time, when we have a community like this and we all contribute to the financial stability of said community, we all have a say and it's important to all of us. So but perception is reality. And Kevin's perception is that 30% of this community, which I am assuming he is relating to the 30% that voted Phil and 30% of the community that voted Phil and John out of office last year. We don't control the community. We want to have a voice. That's all that we're asking. But anyway, or whatever your interpretation is of that question, right? That's mine.
No, it's 53 plus 1.
Do I believe that 30% of the community should control the community? No. A majority of those voting should have say over what this community does. No, a majority of those voting. The way the 67% resolution is structured, it's a majority of those eligible to vote. It's a very different number. I'm not going to argue.
Yes. So those eligible to vote, meaning, so the 67% supermajority that was the resolution change that happened. I'm not even going to say the date because I will get it wrong. But it happened recently in recent memory. That resolution is 67% of people eligible to vote. But we've not ever had 67% of people eligible to vote in an election. So if we don't even have 67% of the people eligible to vote voting, then nothing will ever get passed, right? Like as far as being able to recall or withdraw people that were elected into office. So again, semantics, right? But words are important. Words matter. And he's saying that there is a very big difference between those eligible to vote versus those that do vote.
Sorry.
And he was the only one that answered. And then Kevin went and sat down. All right. Deb did talk about so there was a question asked here next. I believe it's next. Let's see if I can look at the, yes. She's asking about our insurance policy and the deductible. So her interpretation was that for our insurance policy for legal defense, there was a deductible of $25,000. Deb speaks up and is actually like, well, I did that insurance policy and it's $15,000, which is even better, right? Like that's a savings of $10,000 or $10,000 that we didn't have to spend. Deb goes on a long tangent about how the FH Stop group has caused way more than $100,000 worth of expenses to our community. And the question was around why did we have to raise like $50 per person for the legal fees when we already had a legal budget set aside for this year that was like around $145,000. And Deb says, well, we've spent more than $100,000 on the responses to all the letters that have come from FH Stop. So again, we get lawyers involved when people feel like there have been injustices done. And we as a community have to accept that as a risk. Whenever you get more than two people together, there's going to be a difference of opinion. And that might lead to some risk management that has to be accounted for. Kevin or Craig Myler asked next around 1 hour, 25 minutes and 31 seconds. What is the community on the hook for basically for Hosted America? Deb talked about how it doesn't cost us anything. She said it doesn't cost us anything. Hosted America paid for the running of the lines and everything. But again, we had to do an entire building that was temperature controlled and all this other stuff for server rooms. And I want to say that we had an entire meeting in 2023 or 2024 where we talked about the $6,000 or so that was going to be put up for making those improvements to the building that already existed. And then I've heard other people say, no, we spent like 15 plus $1,000 on outfitting that server building for the infrastructure that was going to be needed for the lines run. I don't know. And I can't find it in the actual budget documents. There's a fiber optic line item, which has $15,000 budgeted for this year and $15,000 budgeted for next year. There's a revenue line item that says that we're expected to get revenues in excess of like $50,000, $30,000, something like that this year. But as of my last understanding, we have 80 people that have signed up for Hosted America. So if that's $240 a year times 80 people, let's see, I have a calculator right here. That's $19,200. So that's like 20-ish $1,000 shy of a revenue projection that is going into the budget for this fiscal year. And we've not corrected that number. And well, it just started. So anyway, we should be correcting that number. I don't see that number going up. Then and Bob did say that he wanted to see the contract, understand what was in it. At 1 hour, 28 minutes and like 20 seconds, there was another request for a pledge for civility across our community. And I found this important. So I'm going to go to his piece. Give me 1 second. Craig. No, Craig McIntyre, I believe. All right, here we go. This is a pledge for civility, and he has a letter, and I'm going to keep playing this until he walks to the back of the room and shows us the letter that he got in his mailbox. So he must be one of the FH stoppers, right? He got this letter in his mailbox. I will say, not safe for work, right? Like there's cuss words on here. So if you have a small child that can read in your presence, you may want to go to audio only at this point, but this is your warning.
I would like to get a pledge from each of the candidates here tonight, and it's basically about civility. Okay, I was given an envelope, all right, that we got in the mail from FH Stop, and I'm going to show it to everybody. Everybody in the hall here, you can come up to me and take a good look at it. Okay, the civility thing is this. Okay. This stuff that goes on here, okay, and a lot of people think FA stuff was developed for the Fairfield Harbour St. Joe Rockford.
That's right.
St. Joe that was nicknamed by a few and on this past letter. But I would like to show you.
Is there a question?
Yes, I want a pledge that this kind of civility, needs to change, that we need to come together as a community. And I gladly show everybody here, this thing here, and it also says that, expect a counter protest May 17th.
So today is May 17th, and this thing that I'm about to show you says that there is going to be a counter protest on May 17th. So tensions, I'm sure, are going to run high today. There is a barbecue fundraiser happening for FH Stop. There is evidently going to be a counter protest coming. Someone has taped nickels to this. Again, the language, I'm not going to read it out loud in case you are, ooh, okay, let me see. Okay, so this is what it says. I'm not going to read this out loud. You can read it if you want to see it. We're all adults here. And we have a ton of younger people coming in behind us. A lot of kids here, a lot of teenagers here. And we are setting the example for how these kids are going to show up in their communities down the road. And is this the example that we want to set? I'm going to get off of this screen. So let me just forward a little bit so we can move forward. we want to create my kids listen to me do this podcast whenever I'm doing it when they're awake. My kids listen to me do this podcast. I want my kids to know that they have a voice. I want my kids to, and yes, I cuss. I love Jesus and cuss a lot. But I want my kids to know that they have a voice. If they don't have a platform because they can't go to open meetings because there's only 3 seats available and we turn everybody away from our board meetings, you weren't asked to be on the agenda, so you can't be here. We don't agree with your politics, so you can't come to board meetings anymore. What There's not enough chairs in this room, so you can't come into this meeting. Again, if you don't have a platform, you can create a platform, right? I want my kids to see that they can take action. And action may not look like what everybody else's action does. But I try to be real civil here. I try to be very even in my approach. I agree with some of the things Deb said here. I agree with some of the things Neil said here. I agree with a lot of the things that Wayne and Lee said here. I've met with Bob. I agree with a lot of his intent and the things that he wants to see done, especially given his resignation on the board last time and what he wants to do to kind of change, make sure that the board is cohesive so they can better serve the community, make sure that he understands there were things going into his first term that he didn't understand how it all worked together. He has that knowledge now and he wants to use it moving forward. I just think we can try to put ourselves in other people's shoes. We can try to be um, even-minded. We can try to be empathetic towards other people. Again, emotions run high in this meeting. You can definitely tell there was this us versus them. But I don't think that we are, as a community, collectively setting the best example for those kids who are super confused about what may be going on here. I just had an 8-year-old tell me yesterday that my son and him couldn't go to the park because they weren't 16 years old. It's a park. And I know that there was something put out recently, right? That unless you are 16 years old or older, you needed to have parental supervision, but that's not what these kids are hearing. Again, communication. If it involves these kids, we need to post a sign. We need to come up with a way to communicate with these kids. Do we have a kids group, a kids committee that is, we had Morgan, and God bless, like, we miss her involvement in creating activities for our kids, right? But like we we have to come up with a way to communicate, because even these 8-year-old kids, 10-year-old kids, my son's 10, this little boy is 8, have a misunderstanding of what was implied because of what they have been told, but they have not been told by the people that put out that policy directly. How are we going to communicate with these kids? I have some ideas, but I don't today. We can't even communicate with adults who have like an 8th grade, at least, reading level and professional experience that has gotten them through their working years into retirement, which is a large part of this community. Like, I don't understand. Um, we have to bridge this gap, this communication gap, this lack of transparency gap, this lack of information and or misinformation, because again, if you don't have the information, people fill in the gaps for themselves, and then that becomes reality, right? And then that proliferates Facebook. I just We have to come up with something better. We have to do better. And I don't think that that's all on the board. I think that's all of us. But I would love some ideas. I will be bringing my ideas, but again, not sure to who. But especially as it relates to communicating with these kids. Anyway, I'm not going to continue going through. I mean, I'm going to play us, because again, we had a lot of questions. Kathleen Monroe stepped up and talked about, I just want to be treated like a human being. I don't need to be taught, like, don't talk about me behind my back, talk about me to my face. Um, this okay, so look at this. So we had one question here at the end. I was really disheartened by this. We're at the almost 2-hour mark, right? And this woman finishes asking her question, and literally the guy holding the microphone goes to the back of the room and sits down. There's one more person in line to ask a question, and they do not come back. Like, it's like, "Hey, we still have," and they were like, "We're done. We're like, I will let us watch it. I don't let me see if I can just get us here. Uh, let's go a little bit further ahead.
No. What?
She has a question, and they are not acknowledging her
Nobody gave
at all.
notice that we were done.
Like, Pat Dumond is talking.
Good evening, my name's Lois Sanders, and this question is for Lee and Wayne. And I know
And her question is for Lee and Wayne specifically about their platform that they are running on, because she, from listening to the question, is not of their same political mind. So but the fact that we would literally take the microphone away from people. There is this lady standing up at the back of the room. There was no announcement that this meeting is over at 9 o'clock. There was no, "Hey guys, we've got time for 2 more questions and then we're going to close it down." It literally, this lady right before her finishes her question. The guy with the microphone just goes and sits at the back of the room. And we just pretend like she's not standing there, and people start closing the meeting. That's how disrespectful we treat each other in this community. And that has nothing to do with her question. That is just sheer human decency. I was That was one of the most shocking things. That, the yellow letter that I previewed earlier, the fact that the sheriff, like, the and her, I forget her title, but whatever, from the sheriff's office, walking out someone and then having to verbally give a warning to Kevin Heidel. Like, I don't wild. Wild. So anyway, we'll listen to her question.
that you are supported by FHStop, so I assume you are also in line with the representative. So my question to you is, can you explain how the action, particularly the lawsuit and opposition to ongoing projects, are helping the community save money and move forward rather than increasing costs and delaying progress?
So she's asking about the lawsuit and other attempts by FH Stop to delay progress on developing the open spaces and all of this other stuff, and how that is helping our community move forward and costing us money. She's asking for them to respond to that. And they do. You can listen to this if you want. But I mean, she had a great question, and we literally were just going to leave her standing there and not even acknowledge that someone from our community that lives here and is a property owner is standing here with a question for 5 people that are vying for a candidate position on our board. I could not believe it. Okay, and then let me get back to this last part because our deputy takes the mic. That was there from the sheriff's office. Oh, here she is. Again, I hope this is playing. So we don't recognize that this one lady is standing at the back of the room ready to ask a question that everyone responds to, and that's great. Once we finally get them to be like, "No, give her a microphone, let her ask her question." But yet, this person from the sheriff's office who does not live here, she is just there to maintain any social unrest that happens as part of this meeting. And we stop the meeting and have everyone sit back down so that we can hear her. She's not a property owner. She likely doesn't live here. I don't know that for sure. She likely doesn't live here. She is just here to help manage this meeting. And we will stop the meeting, hold our hand up, and say, stop, sit down. This person has something to say. But yet we have a homeowner that owns a property in our community, is a neighbor, pays dues, has a question, and we pretend like she's not even standing there. I do really like what she says at the end. And this is how I'm going to end my meeting. So as soon as she finishes talking, I'm hoping again that you're getting the audio here. I'll have to go back and re-listen, but I hope we take this all to heart.
It's been a pleasure working here tonight. Thank you so much for having me. I'm not biased. I congratulate all of our wonderful people who won this position. I just want to shed some light on perspective. You told me earlier as scoring officer for our Hawks and his wife, his lovely wife. I know them personally. So as you can see, I think I'm on a job that I can help you with being prompt in my position, but also not being biased, prejudiced. Because I can promise you that when we went out to that parking lot and I talked to them about the solace in my job, I hugged them for all Hawks. And I still will make sure that I care about them. If I can do that in my official capacity as a law enforcement officer, and show and still show kindred spirit in all that I do, then I ask you, are you part of the problem or part of the solution? And if you want something that is attainable, you have to show effort and do it. Thank you.